You're listening to Unmuted Love. Hi there, I'm C. Ushelman, and with 35 years as a marriage and family therapist and 25 years as a parent of 2 children I brought home from the foster care system, I want to welcome you here to Unmuted Love Podcast, the one place where nothing is off limits to say out loud about parenting children from difficult beginnings.
Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute, long it over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you wanna be for a minute, don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you?
Sometimes it's real sweet around here, and sometimes it ain't so pretty, because this is 100% Unmuted Love. So let's go.
You'll be just
Welcome, Ciruolo, to Unmuted Love. I'm delighted to see you again. I really am.
I'm delighted to see you again. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. So, folks, Di's a mother of 2, what she calls neurospicy kids.
Yes.
She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion educator and social justice advocate.
Yes.
Right? Your experiences growing up and aging out of the foster care system gives you a fairly unique understanding of what goes on in the system and insight into the lives of children from difficult beginnings, right? Who struggle with complex trauma and neurodiversity. And you're the author of 2 books, right?
Yes.
Your most recent book is entitled Indomitable. Look at, I can say it now.
Yes.
Indomitable, a foster care story.
Yes.
And it's truly a worthy read. I can't say it's a fun read. It wasn't particularly enjoyable, Di. Just saying, it's hard.
I know. Every time somebody tells me they're excited, I never know how to quite react. I'm like, okay, well, slow down there. It's not really that exciting.
Well, it actually is, though, in a way, because it's such an important story to tell. And I know it's your story, so it was very important for you to tell, but it's important for people to know, right?
Yes.
So congratulations on the book and for, being indomitable.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. I had to write it though. I don't know how to explain that when you kind of know the thing you're supposed to do in your life, you either do it or you sort of suffer under why you can't do it for all of that time,
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that you just did it.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, I did just do it.
It's important work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. It is important work. It's very important for me and my children and really my family to be able to overcome this. And I really wasn't going to until I could put it down. So writing the book really helped me take it outside of my body. So that was all really important in terms of healing for us.
Hey, despite our 30 years difference in age-ish, maybe more.
You'd say so.
We have some, early adverse childhood experiences in common, which brings me to say this, which I often say, which is trauma is trauma is trauma, right? Trauma impacts the brain and the body complex profoundly and in similar ways, right, across everyone's lifespan. And so, it's hard to heal from it. And it takes a lot, right? I mean, I'm understanding from your book that it's taken a lot to recover from it. And not that nobody really recovers from it, right? You just heal and get better.
Yeah. So we always kind of have this feedback as human beings that like, oh, time heals all wounds and it's on all of our TV and all of that. And I think I was just waiting for it to just go away, right? Like you do, right? Like you do. Oh, just ignore it. It'll go away eventually. But that just wasn't what was happening. In fact, as I had my kids, the more and more stuff was being brought up for me, right? So you kind of go through these levels on your own as a person, and then you have kids, and whether you have healed those levels or not comes out for you in a much higher stakes way because suddenly you have children that are going through those things as well. And either you have developed the tools to overcome those things or you will flounder in them with your kids. That meant the most to me in terms of like putting my face to the actual grindstone. It mattered that like I could teach them to not follow in sort of the same repetitive patterns of trauma that I had been past. Real work had to be done to not do the same.
You say in your book, and I'll confess that I'm one of the adults that is guilty of saying that there's no way your trauma wouldn't be handed down to your
Yeah.
children, right?
Yes.
And,
Yes. Yes.
but I say that because it's part of multi-generational transmission process. Without doing your own trauma work, right? It does pass down.
Absolutely, it does.
And
Absolutely.
and it doesn't have to, right?
No, it doesn't have to. We as people, and I know this through so many different parents besides myself, we as parents will look at our own experiences and say, well, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to hit my kids the way I was hit. I'm not going to make these choices the way I was, those choices were made for me. And that's great. But there's also other more insidious levels to how we parent, right? So, like, are you the type of person that doesn't have the ability to self regulate? Are you the type of person that needs to yell when your children kind of push you out of your zone? Are you the type of, so all of those things for me were like second tier issues that I hadn't dealt with. There's your first tier stuff that you're like, okay, I'm not going to hit my kids. I'm not going to beat them. I'm not going to tell them that they're worthless. I'm not going to tell, not going to starve them. Any of the things that happened to
Sure.
me, obviously, that's a much easier choice to make. But unless you are doing the work, intentional work, laborious therapy work, you are going to pass some of that down without intending to if you haven't broken out of that cycle. It is absolutely, it just is what it is. Even if you hated it, even if you hate your parents for it, even if you don't speak to them to this day, those patterns are inside you. And if you don't have a different route to take, you're going to take the well-worn route of sometimes yelling when you're angry.
That's
It
right.
just
It's neuroscience.
neuroscience, exactly.
Right, right. And I mean, that's what happened to me when I brought my
Of
kids
course,
home from the foster care system,
of course.
right? I
Yeah,
just started hearing my mother straight out of my mouth. I'm like,
absolutely,
oh my God,
absolutely.
what am
Yep.
I saying? And why am I saying this? And I couldn't
Mhm.
stop it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand trauma at the time. It's a long time ago now. I had to kind of search far and wide to figure out how to get help. And actually, it was really hard because people didn't know how to help me.
No,
And
yes.
people didn't know how to help my kids, and they didn't know how to help me help my kids. It was just really quite a mess.
Mhm. Well,
But
people have to believe that you're worthy of help before they're willing to help you, right? And a lot of times when you have foster kids, a lot of times people will just write that off as impossible. You can't help foster kids. You can't help foster kids get better. And thus, even though you are wonderful and I'm sure everything you are doing is just, you're trying so hard, you're not going to be successful no matter what you do. That's kind of always the feedback I got. And I've seen it spread throughout our community like, oh, well, that's just the way it is for them. And you should be happy that they're not, whatever that. So,
axe
like, yeah,
murderers.
right. People have to be, in order to want to help each other, people have to believe that you're a human being worthy of that help. Right. I mean, just in sort of hunting for my own healing, my own therapy, my own going through trauma, I had so many people that just kind of wrote me off like, oh, well, look at that. You already survived. Like, what else do you want? It's like, I'd like to live if that's cool. Like, I'd like to have my own children not experience what I went through. How do
Right.
we do that? And then, people just, and I say this in the book, people just casually are unaware of what they don't understand, and they're just very loud about it. So, I
That is for
mean,
sure, for sure.
right? Oh my,
I
they
know.
never, they never even slow down. You know what I mean? They never even slow down to think about the things they say. So, agree.
I'm an adopted parent, and I work
Right.
largely with the parents of children who come from the foster care system into a
Yes.
home, right? And then people say to them, "Oh, the kids are so lucky." And the parents are like, "Well, first of all, no, the kids are not lucky. And
No.
secondly, why would they be lucky that they were coming out of what happened to them into
Right.
our home where we can hardly hold our own trauma in and not re-traumatize them, and we don't
Yes.
understand why they do what they do." I mean, it's just this kind of
Absolutely.
there isn't support for foster care. I mean, there needs to be advocacy there. But
Yes.
also there needs to be, reform in the, foster to adopt system,
Yes.
right? Because once
Yes.
you adopt your kids, then you're on your own.
You're on your
There
own.
are some services, of course, but they're too little
Yeah.
and they don't last long enough, right? Because trauma lasts a lifetime.
Absolutely. And again, we show people what they mean to us by how much effort we're willing to put into them getting better. And we are fine with foster kids being sort of just given the bare minimum of service. And if they are lucky enough to get adopted, then we're just out. That's like paying for marketing after the car is bought. Like we're just out. You know what I mean? And I'm so fascinated that we have this sort of feast or famine mindset, this sort of scarcity mindset around children who we effectively, us as a community of human beings, are responsible for. All of us are responsible for these kids. They are ours. We even call them wards of the state. And yet we are so callous and just thoughtless in how the system, we can call it the system, how the system works and chews these kids up and spits them out. We're just so casual about it, and I'm always so stunned when we think about just that those resources aren't there to help foster parents who want to do the right thing and want to adopt those children and want to take them home. We're just like, cool, lots of trauma to go through, but you're going to be great. Like how,
Yeah. Good luck.
right? Best of luck. See you next time. Like,
That's
what
right.
on earth? Like, what do we expect? What do we expect the outcomes are going to be when we put people in those situations? And
Right.
if we take the next thought, what does that mean? If we expect bad outcomes, then what does that mean about those kids? How do we feel about those kids? How do we feel about those families? It's abhorrent.
Right.
It's sad.
It is sad and it's hard. And if
Of
you're
course.
in it, it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders to figure it all
Absolutely.
out. And it's really hard to figure out. And it's really hard
Absolutely.
how to
Yeah.
heal, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's quite a difficult
And
process for
not
everybody.
only are the resources not out there, the information isn't out there, right? Like who knows about this? You and me, like 10 other people. Like,
Right.
it's just, I mean, I feel terrible for people who are in these circumstances because you just, even the information, even if you wanted to do it yourself, even if you wanted to put everything you had into it in good faith, how could you? So I
Well,
want to do more because I wish there was more.
yeah, for sure. Me too. And I do as much as I can. I have
Of
this
course.
membership where
Yes, of
parents come
course.
into the membership, adopted parents come in, and
Mhm.
I do my very best to help them look at their own trauma, to help them
Amazing.
look at the trauma of their children, and then
Mhm.
how to heal the trauma while healing themselves in
While
this
healing
process,
themselves.
and
Yes,
while dealing with big, baffling neurodiversity, all kinds of
yes,
behavior that nobody understands. No one can
yes,
support it. No one,
yes.
schools don't understand it. They understand it
Right,
sort of, but not really. And
right, but
and
not enough to extend that
kids
help.
really should just do homework,
Yes, yes,
like,
absolutely.
yeah. So, I wanted to like bring it back to you a little bit, for
Sure,
my listeners who may not be as familiar with your origin story as I am,
yeah,
since I've read your book. Um,
thank you.
can you do a little bit of what Brene Brown calls, nutshelling it for us? Though, nutshelling can't do justice to what you just wrote a whole book about.
Right, right, right.
Give
So
it a
the
teeny
short,
shot.
yes, I will try. The short ADHD version of this, even which is just a joke. Those are all long versions. So the short version of this is that I am Ciruolo. I am a writer. I am a speaker, and I am a justice advocate. I educate a lot of people around the space of DEI, especially tech and biotech companies. I grew up in the Massachusetts foster care system. I had an extremely traumatic experience that sort of runs the gauntlet between, let's say, all the worst things that you can imagine. And I have, including my experience in sort of the school system and how that worked and didn't work for me, and then sort of how my ADHD impacted all of those scenarios. And I have sort of poured it into a book called Indomitable, a foster care story. So that is what I am doing today. I am promoting that book. I am doing talks about that book, and I am supporting people that are in those sort of adjacent and similar circumstances that I have been in. And it has truly been one of the most fulfilling experiences for me, mostly because I thought that people would respond differently than they are. I thought people would read it and think, oh my God, this girl's experience is so far from me. I can't possibly relate. She needs to move to a desert island. And instead, what's happening is so many people share in pieces of the story. that it's practically as if I was living in their house, and they will message me and email me and reach out to me and say, Di, I didn't know this was what happened to me. I feel so hopeful that you experienced this too, and you've made this out of it. It feels like seeing them. And it's gotten me to the place where I realize that the traumas we go through as humans are startlingly similar, right? So, nutshell, I'm Di, I write, I'm chaotic, and I've got 2 kids as well.
Well,
Me.
right?
Right.
That's how come I mean, I feel like, we have so much in common because I have a
Absolutely. Of
traumatic
course.
childhood, you have a traumatic
Yes.
childhood, and the
Absolutely.
after effects of it are
Yes.
significant. And
Are
then, of course, I
significant
have
incidents.
children who have trauma, that's
Mhm.
significant. It's like
Yep.
it just goes on,
Absolutely.
and it's very similar, right? The
Yes.
story is very
Yes.
similar, reading about
Yes.
it.
Right.
Hey, what? I wanted to read something from your book because I loved your description of neurodiversity in your book and the of your book. As
Thank
you're
you.
talking about ADHD and
Yes.
in my line of work, I'm working with kids from difficult beginnings who are often diagnosed with complex trauma and ADHD, and it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. And if you
Mhm.
have both, it's a double whammy.
It's a
And
double win.
like you, right? Double whammy. And I like this description of it. So here we go. People with neurodiversity have processing issues. We see everything, we can hear everything. The world isn't made for us. It's too loud, too bright, too hot, too cold, and too itchy. And that's painful. Let me give you an example. So, you know how if you're neurotypical, you can't feel your clothes on you, you can't hear the lights buzzing, you don't see the computer screen blinking. We can, loudly, all at once. If I'm in a restaurant listening to you talk, I can also hear all the other conversations happening around us, often situations that cost us the most, like crowds and fluorescent lighting, for example, cause our brains to become overstimulated. Our behavior and body language start to show the pain of that, but it somehow looks to neurotypical people. This is the important phrase for me. It somehow looks to neurotypical people like defiance. And adults have strong opinions about defiant children to this day, especially defiant foster children who get to go to nice schools. And that definitely did have an impact on my overall ability to be successful, mostly because I was reminded every minute of every day that I wasn't living up to my full potential. I can't think of a better way to describe most of the kids, my own kids, most of the kids I work with, and most of the kids the parents in my membership are living with too. They're
Absolutely.
overstimulated, they're dysregulated, they aren't understood, they experience the world differently, and people see them as defiant.
Yes. And they are being exiled by the people that are supposed to help them because the people don't know how to help them and don't know how to relate, and thus keep them at sort of an arm's length. And they experience the rejection of that, right? So, like, we foster kids see other adult teachers and all of the administrators and faculty hugging kids on the way by, asking them about their moms, all of those things. We see those familiar behaviors, those sort of familial relationships that are being built in schools, and we see the separateness that we experience, and we put that on ourselves. And that happens because it's not because like people are bad, it's because people don't understand. And when they don't understand, they have sort of this common reaction to it, which is to sort of put it at arm's length. And that's okay. I mean, if you're trying to like keep yourself safe, but you're still talking about children. And I sometimes don't think people realize that. They sort of adultify children who have been through what we've been through, and thus anything that you would ask for that child is sort of met with this kind of pushback, right? Like any sort of accommodations you would ask for, any conversation you would have is met with this kind of pushback. And I think that that's really one of the hardest things because we don't understand why that's happening, and we put it on ourselves because of rejection sensitivity. So yes.
Right. I love that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I work with that all the time, but I think it might be the languaging of it might be
Mm,
new to some listeners. And I think
sure.
I certainly had that growing up. And
Yeah.
I'm hearing that
Yes.
maybe you too.
Yes. Yes. So, rejection sensitivity, when we're describing that, what we're talking about, the easiest way to think about this is that if you know somebody today that has ADHD, potentially yourselves, you will notice that that person is sort of an expert face reader, an expert room reader, an expert at like practically psychic about vibes, right? Like they are just always right about stuff. And when it comes to why, it is not because we're psychic, it's because we are practiced at trauma. So we have had to make everybody around us happy and comfortable for all of our lives. So we are used to, when we would go to an adult to ask for attention the way children do, being rejected. And not just always with words, often with faces, right? Like often with the language or the everything.
Right.
Right, exactly. Oh, what do you need now? Oh, you're so much work. You need so much attention. You're so needy. All of those things that adults would say to us develop this sort of sensitivity within our bodies that is from being rejected over and over and over again. And it turns into this condition called rejection sensitivity, which 98% of ADHDers are experiencing. And trauma is exactly the same thing. So as C has probably told you thousands of times, trauma brain, ADHD brain, neurodiversity brain, nearly indistinguishable with how it's reacting to the world. Pain is pain, right? Rejection sensitivity develops from being rejected so often by the world around us that we sort of have internal pain just in asking for help or having our needs met or any of those sorts of things, to the point where a lot of us just shut down and become the type of people that won't ask for anything and will do it all ourselves, or come up with long and winding reasons for why we can't ask.
Or
That's rejection.
reject others, right?
Reject others,
Before you
absolutely.
get
Reject
rejected.
others,
Right.
exactly. So I went through this as well when I was dating, right? I had, even when I met my partner, who is such a kind and decent human being and was only ever meeting me with like love and affection, I would think that this must be a test. He's testing me. This must be like, oh my God, what is this? Why is he so nice to me? Oh my God, he just brought me my coffee. What's happening? He's gonna break, he's cheating on me. He's gonna break up. You know what I mean? And you develop this like fear to the point where like kindness and love can sometimes cause you pain, because I've heard it described like this, right? So like imagine that you've been out in the cold for years and years and years, right? And somebody draws you a hot bath. And the second you get into that hot bath, it burns your skin immediately, even though it's the right temperature, even though it's all the things that you would normally need. The instant pain of that, going from the absolute cold to the comfort and love and affection of a family, it's painful. You
Mhm.
reject it instantly because your brain is afraid to feel it. You are so much more comfortable with the feelings that you can control, that you have experienced before, that you're afraid, and
Mhm.
and you're not sure how to talk about it or how to ask. They don't teach us that. We've been so stunted by our experiences that it causes us pain. Yeah, that rejection looks like pain.
Thank you for sharing that. That's hard to
Oh, of course.
share because it's so personal, and I know it was for
Yes.
me too.
Yes.
I was ashamed of that,
Yes, of
ashamed of
course.
my reaction to, I don't know, people caring about me, or fear they wouldn't
Yes.
care about me, or the slightest
Right,
little hint of rejection, I would just be like,
right.
you
Yeah.
know, I was
Somebody's
embarrassed by it, and I'm a
yes.
therapist, you're not supposed to have
Yeah.
that.
No, no, absolutely not. But yeah, no, absolutely. Over and over again, I had that experience just over and over again, where I would try to make myself smaller as a result of that. Just less needy, less everything, just less, you know? And
Yeah,
and that's what we do.
be small.
Yeah, be small.
Be
Yeah,
small.
fit
Yeah.
in that box. Be who I say you are,
Mhm.
And society does not help us on that journey.
No,
So,
not at all. Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, I mean, it's great to have people like you in the world. I know it's good to have me in the world, right? It
Yes, it's
helps
absolutely
us
great.
get outside and be compassionate about getting out of the box, right? Trying to
Yes,
fit in the perfection box or fit in the overachiever box, right? The
overachiever
good girl
box,
box,
burnout box.
the
Yeah,
burnout box, right?
absolutely. Mhm,
Just like,
absolutely,
oh,
and we'll try it.
it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to be caretaken, right? These was just a lot of things that you have to learn if you have any trauma in your history. Well, and even if you don't, I mean, just
Even if you
societally,
don't,
right?
everybody has trauma, like, everybody, like, not at our level of trauma, agreed, I get that there are different levels of trauma, but everybody experiences trauma in life,
Yeah.
and thus, the reactions to trauma are very similar, and it's very rewarding when you can reach out to other people because you know that journey and you know that road, and you can tell them, "Look, I get that it's not the same as me, that we're not here for the oppression Olympics. We're here to show each other the way on the road. So it's been very rewarding to be able to have taken that experience and turned it into sort of a code that I can now read and help others with. So I'm lucky that way, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that is important to me is that, I work with parents of
Yes.
neurodiverse kids, and I'm always saying to them, look past what you're looking at and ask yourself, what is the communication? What's really happening here? Investigate a little more before you decide that what you see is the truth, that
Right.
your interpretation is the truth. And
Right.
you had a story in your book that I really was kind of cute and horrible at the same time, where
I'm great at cute and horrible at the same time.
where you were in trouble in elementary school for using the boys'
Yes.
bathroom because
Yes.
your literal brain misunderstood the bathroom
Yes.
signage,
Oh
right?
my God.
Like you
Yes.
had on pants, and so you
Right.
went into the, the
I went
icon
into
of the
the
bathroom
pants
with
bathroom.
pants.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's such an innocent thing, but you're in trouble because you're doing something bad when really you're just literal and doing something literal, and
Right.
and,
Right.
and people just really not understanding. And I think that happens a lot where kids
Absolutely it
are
does.
literally answering your question. You're like, oh, don't be smart with me. Like,
Yeah. And
uh,
oh my God, don't be smart with me. And I would just be like, okay, like, what am I doing here then? Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of us are very literal as human beings, and even when we're trying to walk that line and follow people's rules, especially foster parents' rules, it's just there's no way to win. And a lot of people a lot of kids, unfortunately, let it go because they can't be right ever, right? And that's kind of the experience. I mean, eventually you just get to the place where you're like, well, if I'm never going to be right, at least I'm going to whatever.
be wrong
So
on my terms.
be wrong on my terms. Exactly. At least if I'm going to do what I want to do, if I'm going to be wrong regardless. So it's very important to find that line, find that place where you can meet them and be like, look, I see that this is happening. To me, it looks like this. Use your feeling words. To me, it looks like this. How does it feel to you? How are you seeing this? The tremendous thing that we do as parents is we complain that anything that we do is always wrong, and then we never ask. The weird thing about being a parent, and I've had to discover this the hard way, like all of us, right? You always think you know, and then when you don't know, you didn't ask anyway. So it's like when you weren't right, don't give up.
Right.
Ask.
Keep
You know
going.
what I
Just
mean? Take
ask,
the
right?
next step. Keep going.
Just
Don't just
ask.
give up and throw your hands in the air and be like, oh, well, nothing I do is ever right anyway. They're going to complain no matter what I do. They're never going to eat the food I make. Like, ask. I realized that my kid always hated dinner. And then I sat down with him and I was like, "Well, buddy, give me rate this for me. Give it to me on the scale of, 1 to 5. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?" And then I just adjusted for what he liked. Next thing I know, he's eating something nutritious and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my God, has this been it the whole time? I just didn't ask like an idiot." Yeah, no, all the time. Ask.
So I have a question for you. Your
Yes.
childhood was hard, on a brain level, on a life level, but is it
Yes.
still?
Is it still hard?
Yeah.
Is life still hard?
In the neurodiversity, is it still hard?
Yes and no. So easier than it used to be because I didn't understand what was happening to me and I didn't have the power to do anything about it. These days, people who are already feeling like they like me are so much more charitable about anything that I'm dealing with, right? And I'm the type of person who will be like, "Oh God, I totally missed this. It's like it's the ADHD. Sorry about that, y'all. I'll fix it." And people are just like, "Oh, no worries, Di." Da da da. But like when I was a kid, people were like, "Oh, I can't believe you forgot that. You're a terrible human being. If it was important to you, you would have dealt with it." But then, you get older and suddenly your power changes and suddenly people are a lot more
Yeah.
kind
They have
about,
grace. They have more grace for
exactly,
you.
right. They have more grace for me. So even though I've become louder as a person, and I don't mean just loud, loud, I mean like loud as a
Love
person,
that. I love that.
right? Because I've become more loud as a person, people have made so much more room. And I don't know if it's necessarily I've changed. I don't invite commentary, or it could be a lot of things. But I think it has become easier because I understand myself more. I talk about it more. I'm out with it more. And I have translated that for my children as well, because they are dealing with what I was dealing with, but I have taught them the language of self advocacy. So they understand what's happening with them and they are able to explain it to the people around them. And because I am always participating in the schools, everybody that encounters them is more willing to grant them the grace that I was not granted. And that is one of the most amazing things that I've been able to pass down for them. Not even just the looking at themselves with that love and support, but like being able to advocate for themselves and each other, right?
That's such an awesome skill and strength, right? Because
Yes,
you need
absolutely.
that your whole life. You have
You
to
need it your
advocate for
whole life.
yourself your whole life. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I let them fail. I let them be wrong because I have to be able to fail and be wrong. And I will explain what's going on with me. I even have days when I'm burned out, from we say using too many spoons. And I'll have to like lay in bed in the dark just quietly. And I explain to my kids what's happening. I zapped myself by using too many spoons. I tried to do too many things. And now I need like this many hours to lay here and just be in this like position. And they'll be like, cool, mom, all right, got it. Because it's going to become important to them eventually that they can tell people that that's what's going on with them. See, this is a new culture that we're passing down, sort of the culture of neurodiversity,
Mhm.
and just like doing it with love and excitedness rather than like depression and like
Yeah. Like something's
feelings
wrong
of
with me.
unworthiness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something's wrong with me. I'm broken. So I have to
yeah. Oh,
lay in
I'm
bed. I have
broken.
to
So
lay in
this,
bed for a day.
I,
Like, no.
yeah, exactly. No, this is just what happens. We can use more power, so we burn ourselves out before we notice.
This is just an aside. I was thinking about in
Yeah.
your book, you say PBS is love, right?
Yes.
You're a latchkey kid, and so was I. And like
Yes.
for me, it was Captain Kangaroo and Star Trek.
Yes.
A
Yes.
couple of generations before you.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your love of PBS.
Yes, absolutely. So, the shortest version of this is that I was often left home alone by somebody that was abusing drugs. And we were locked in our room a lot with only the PBS, this television set to PBS. And when I was a kid, it was Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and, LeVar Burton and Reading Rainbow. And PBS understood that what they were doing was looking at the kids who weren't being seen, and they took that responsibility seriously. So I had people like Mr. Rogers saying, I love you just the way you are. Or LeVar Burton, don't just take my word for it. Take yourself to the local book, take yourself to the library, get your library card and read everything you can and be this person and learn. And it just, those things saw me in a way that I had not been seen before. And I suddenly knew that just as a person, just because I could hear them, I was worthy of love and support that I was not getting. And I had no other way of knowing that to that point. So, because of, shows like Sesame Street, which showed other kids that were like in adjacent scenarios to mine, not abuse scenarios, but definitely sometimes less socially advantageous scenarios similar to mine, suddenly it was everything. It was the support, it was the love, it was the affection that I wasn't getting anywhere else. I will always be a supporter of PBS because PBS is one of my parents. It raised me. Like it gave me the foundation I needed to be able to become a successful adult in this world. So yes, I do say I do spend an entire at least a page or two on PBS because PBS helped me see myself as a person who was valuable. And so, yes, PBS is love.
I love that. Yeah, I love that because I feel that way
Thank you.
about the family
Yes.
too, right? Because they
Yes, of
they say to
course.
me, they
Yes.
say to me in a way that teachers, certain teachers, not all teachers, because some abuse me, but some
Right.
say to me, um,
Right.
teachers and some really great, like Star Trek, the
Star
original,
Trek. Yes.
exposed me to diversity, to
Yes.
equality, to
Mhm.
same-sex relationships, right? They go
Absolutely.
these planets with all kinds of
Mhm.
differences, and I was just
Mhm.
like, I took that in hook, line, and sinker,
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
I think that's why I am who I am today because it really
Yep.
impressed upon me,
Mhm.
like, "Oh, these are things, right?
These
These
are
are
things.
valid
Yeah.
things,"
This is fine. Yeah.
So
Totally. And then when you get hit with the social hate that you're supposed to just like suck up, you're sitting there going, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
No.
Like, no.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I already saw that Captain Picard is not down with this particular type of, and honestly, I'm with Captain Picard on this. Like, no, agree. Yep. And
Yeah.
I guess that's why everybody's, I guess that's why all of those sorts of things exist, because I guess that's why the pushback exists, because indeed we are seeing each other in our media for the first time. And I think that that's really worthwhile for all of us,
Yeah.
to know that we have value.
Yeah, for sure. What does it say about you that wherever you go, it just happens that people tell you intimate things?
I feel like I have this presence or this energy that just nurtures, right? I feel like people can just, they see it on me when they see me. And
Mhm.
I have every day a version of this. Today, I was volunteering at my daughter's in her library, right? And it was my job to read a book to the kids and help them pick out their library books. And one girl was reading a book that she had already had, and she said to me, Miss Di, do you see the book I picked out? And I said, oh, yes, kitties. I love kitties. And she goes, do you know why I picked it out? And I said, I don't, sweetie. Why did you pick it out? And she said, my cat died. And I said, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. And she just wanted to tell me about the cat. From children to the oldest adults, that's just every day of my life. Somebody walks up to me, they can feel whatever I can't see about myself, and they just feel that they have a place to be nurtured in. And what does it say about me? I'm delighted to hold that space for every single person that comes into my space and just needs that one quick second of humaning, right? Like of human to human relationship. So I'm not sure. I think I have something on my face. It's like whatever the opposite of resting bitch face is. It's like tell me your problems face, right? But like I'm here to love you face. I'm not sure, but
Well, that's
like,
what I was gonna say. I think it's
yeah,
love. I would call that love.
right, right. So I'm whatever it is, I'm grateful for it, because it's made my life so worthwhile, not even just for the things that I have cultivated in my own life, but for what I am able to do for others in my community. So resting love face, I guess.
Oh, I love resting love face. I'm so gonna
Resting love
use
face.
that. Can I use that in the future?
Yes, please. I mean, I guess I'm so delighted at being alive because I know what could have happened, and I'm so aware of that like the gratitude I have for being alive just
Yeah,
falls out of my just radiates out of me.
totally. I have that too. My mom died in a car accident when I was a teenager, and I just have that live feeling, like just you're not
Yeah.
given it life,
Yeah.
right? You just have to
Yeah.
live it every single day like it's your last
Yeah.
day. That
Yes.
matters,
Absolutely.
like that changes
Right.
how you see everything.
It changes your lens. It changes your lens. And I think that a lot of times people don't know how to talk to people if they haven't experienced what they've experienced. So I
Mhm.
think a lot of times going through something like that can be incredibly lonely because people don't know the right thing to say. So they just go away for long enough that they never have to say it. And I think that's one of sort of the saddest things when we think about like things that people are going through. Had so many friends go through something and sort of come to me first because I don't go away. I don't run from it. I don't have any agenda. I understand that bad, terrible things can happen and that there's just nothing to say. I'm sad for people that are more afraid of saying the wrong thing than they are of losing a friend.
That's what I call post-traumatic growth, right?
Yes.
That's what came out of all the hardship you
Yes.
experienced in your childhood was
Yes.
this way about you that that is meets people where they're at with an
Yeah.
open heart when like, why in the world would you ever have an open heart? But you do, because that's
To me,
post-traumatic growth.
for me, it's the other way. Like I'm always, when I think about it, I think I'm aware of not being the same as everybody else. But when I see how they are, I'm always like, but why though? Like, why is that better? Why is that what you want more? All of the people that I've ever met are like, oh, I wish I could have like that lust for life, that zest for life that you carry through the world. I want to have relationships with, and it's like, okay, well, do you or don't you? You
Do
know? Like,
it.
for me, I will look at those people and I just feel sad. I'll be like, why? Why like that? Why not like that? Oh, well, people could take advantage. Okay, but really? People could take of what? You're not offering anything. Like, what do you mean? That's us. So love, but I see it the other way. I see it as just what else could I be? Who else could I be? Everything else is just so I couldn't be that. So I have to be this. So, you know,
So I want to give you before we end, I want to give you the space to talk about what I think is dear to your heart, which is your DEI work.
yeah.
What do you want our listeners to know about your work?
Given who is listening, I want all of you to know that I am in the same place that you're in. I am aware of the same things that you're aware of. I am trying to love children through the same things that you are trying to love children through. And what I'm doing in my work life is building the ground for all of us to be able to exist in the world of the future with more people understanding who we are and what types of accommodations that we need and what makes us a place safe for us. So every day when I show up for work, I show up in the knowledge that I am making space and giving the best opportunity to the next person like me that comes after me. Given who you all are listening, I want you to know that as long as I am alive, I'm going to continue to create that safe persona of the foster kid who made it so that I am not the only one ever. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. Each day is hard, but I'm going to be here doing my part so that when you get that kid raised all the way up, that there is a place for them in the world. Don't quit. Every tiny thing matters. So that is what I would say.
I love that. Di, thank you so, so much for being here.
Absolutely.
I really, really love what you've had to say today, and the world is definitely a better place because you're in it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the space to talk about the things that are so hard to talk about because that's not always the situation. So I appreciate it.
So come back again anytime to Unmuted Love.
Always. Nope,
Come back.
always.
And if I can do anything, you let me know because I'm there.
I appreciate it. You know where to find me if you need me. All of you are welcome to reach out, follow me, let me know how, the experiences are going, let me know how the work is going, and I'm happy to support wherever I can.
And buy your book.
Oh, and buy my book, of course. Buy my book, folks. Buy my book.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
buy our book.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Big love to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope to see you again somewhere.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey parents, this is C. Get the help you need to end destructive and chaotic behavior in your home while parenting children from difficult beginnings. I know you need help, and the Love Plus parenting model actually works. I'm inviting you to work with me personally for 6 months in my virtual therapeutic parent program, and I guarantee you results or 100% of your investment back. How is that for a blue ribbon deal? I'm looking forward to working with you. See you on the inside.
Stop for a minute. Stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head. Try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute. Who you want to be for a minute. Don't get over your head. You're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer. Knowing to talk and when to shut your mouth.
The Unmuted Love podcast is hosted by me, C. Eshelman, attachment and trauma specialist at the Attach Place in Sacramento, California. Our podcast producer is the amazing Saya Clark, and our theme song is Nicer by Houses on the Hill, licensed through Epidemic Sound. Thank you for being such loyal listeners here on Unmuted Love. I'll see you all next week.
You'll be just fine.